And the recording has started. Chair Schmidt, do you want to introduce the meeting, or would you like me to? I have 5:32.
Please, Cheryl, if you could.
Okay. This is the Complaint Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, September 21, 2021. The meeting is called to order. The call-in number is 415-906-4659. The meeting ID is 937-759-646#. If you wish to make a statement during general public comment, please press *6 and unmute your telephone to speak. Please press *6 to mute your telephone once you are done with your statement. Remote access to information and participation. In accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N3320, declaring a state of emergency regarding the COVID-19 outbreak, and Mayor London N. Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency issued on February 25th, 2020, including the guidance for gatherings issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health Officer, aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their board and committee meetings to convene remotely via Microsoft Teams and will allow remote public comment via teleconference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. That's CHERYL.LEGER@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made a part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as it affects the legislative process. Meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Shall I read item number 1, sir?
Yes, please.
Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Roll call. Member Forsley.
Present.
Member Forsley present. Member Stein.
Present.
Member Stein present. Chair Schmidt.
Present.
Chair Schmidt present. We have a quorum. I am not aware of any agenda changes. Is anybody else? Have you received any emails or information? Or I'm seeing a lot of people nod no. Okay.
No, don't think so.
All right, no agenda changes. Okay. Item number 2, we ready for that, sir?
Yes, please.
Item number 2, approval of the August 17, 2021 Complaint Committee meeting minutes. Does anybody have changes or?
I don't. This is Member Stein.
Okay. It doesn't sound like any of the members have changes. I think there was a notation about a written document that was going to go into the minutes, which may have exceeded 200 words.
It's 150 words, yes, and that was an email sent by Anonymous. Let's see. Yeah, sent by Anonymous to both of us on Friday, September 17, stating that the recent draft minutes included a public comment over 230 words by Mr. Pilpel. So that is correct. It is over the 150 word limit. Mr. Pilpel knows what the limit is since he has participated on the task force before. I should have checked the number of words, but I didn't. So shall I ask Mr. Pilpel to revise his comment and submit a revised public comment?
That would probably be the the best approach. Then we don't have to decide whether to accept it or reject it. That's fine with me. I don't know if the other members have any thoughts on this. Otherwise, I'm not sure how we would otherwise handle something like that, but maybe we should ask him. And if he says, yeah, I'll do it, then no issue.
Okay.
Members, any other thoughts on that?
So may I make a comment? I think that what we should do then is continue the minutes to the call of the chair to be approved next month at the October Complaint Committee hearing.
Yeah, that's fine. And we may hear about some revisions here today for these minutes, but we won't finalize it until next time. Yes, let's do that.
Do we have a motion on that? Who wants to move?
I'll move to continue that matter until next month, based on the discussion we've had so far.
And I'll second it. This is Member Stein.
All right, so we will move for public comment. Just a second. This is public comment for the motion to continue the matter on the call of the chair. Do we have any public commenters?
Yes.
Can I get a name?
David Pilpel.
Okay. Do we have other public commenters? Chair
Okay.
Schmidt, it looks like
Yeah.
we have a public commenter.
Yeah, let's go ahead. When you're ready, Cheryl, we'll hear from Mr. Pilpel.
Mr. Pilpel, are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks. Okay. I intended to provide my notes with my comments for the meeting, which I did provide to Cheryl. I was not necessarily intending that they be used as a 125-word statement. I think that probably works fine for item 5 in the minutes, and I guess the problem that someone else pointed out is that my comments on item 6 probably exceed 125 words, and just looking at it right now, it looks like it probably does. I did communicate to Cheryl recently that there's a portion at the end of my comments on item 6 that can be chopped off. If that gets it down to 125, then that's fine. Otherwise, I'm very much open to Cheryl summarizing the written comments. It doesn't have to be in the minutes verbatim. I don't think it matters for the record. The important thing I thought was to get those comments to you as members so that you had something to look at based on the discussion that we had last time on item 6. But I certainly was not interested or intending to provide more than 125 words as a written statement, et cetera. So I think it's fine to continue it. Happy to work with Cheryl to clean it up in a way that is compliant either way. And if you've all seen the comments at length in item 6, then I think we're fine all the way around. If you have questions, I can address it, but I hope that summarizes the situation.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm not sure if we have anyone else with public comment, although it was good to hear from the member of the public who we had been discussing. And it does sound like we should still have a vote on the motion that we have in front of us, because that's a good way to work it all out. Any other public comment? That being so, let's go ahead with a vote.
Chair Schmidt,
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Moved by Chair Schmidt, second by Member Stein to continue approval of the minutes to the call of the chair. Okay. Shall I read item 3, sir?
Yes, please.
Item 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Anyone here for public comment on, and this is the opportunity for general public comment.
Yes, please.
Okay, we have one. That might be Mr. Pilpel. Sullivan.
It is.
Okay, 2. Pilpel, Sullivan,
Anonymous number 3.
anonymous 3. Okay, let's start with those 3. Whenever you're ready, Cheryl. Let's in that same order. Pilpel first, Sullivan second, anonymous 3, third.
Are you ready, Mr. Pilpel?
I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Great, thank you. Just 2 items for general public comment, and then I think I'm done for this evening. I understand that AB 339 and AB 361 were signed recently, I believe taken together. Those 2 pieces of state legislation extend the virtual teleconference situation that we've been in under COVID, either allows or requires it for another 2 or 3 years. I forget what. I've not dug into the details of those 2 bills, but I would encourage you to bring that to the full task force at the next regular meeting, which, let's see, that would be October 6th, and have an overview of those 2 bills and what they do and what they mean and how San Francisco might be implementing that. I think it has some, continuing and interesting policy implications and gets back to the whole issue of what's been good and what hasn't been good about these virtual meetings and what flexibility we have to address that going forward. For example, I can't see any of you right now. You probably don't want to see me, but at least this idea of some meetings being online with video and others only being by phone, there's all kinds of implementation issues. Anyway, so that was my comment on AB 339 and AB 361. And the other comment was slightly in the form of a question. The item 6 that I commented on last month about potential changes to meeting packets and how files are organized and presented, I'm just wondering what the status of that is. I recall that the committee continued that to the call of the chair, and Member Stein was going to do more work on that, and I'm just kind of wondering where that is. Not for lengthy discussion because we're in public comment, but just to get a sense of where that's at. Thanks for your help, and then I'm good for today. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to just interrupt because that item, I want to give Member Stein a chance if she wants to say anything about it, although we could also discuss it when we get to number 8 on today's agenda, because the item did not come in for purposes of today's meeting. Hopefully it's going to be next time. Member Stein, is there anything you want to add just to inform people about what's going on with that item?
Yeah, I'll just say I've been trying to collect information from everywhere that I can, including from other people who are working with technology issues in the city. And I did have a meeting just to kind of get information and get advice from them. And I'm trying to synthesize that along with, what we already discussed and the public comment that we've received. And I hope to have something, or I plan to have something for the next meeting.
Okay, great. And again, I think we all want to, we're all hoping to move forward, and we're hoping to have it on the next agenda. It looks like we will. It was I think, held up a little bit because August, a lot of people on vacation in the city, et cetera, just to tell people who are on the meeting here today what's going on with that. And then I think we've set forth what we would say about that. And let's just say it's going to happen later. So after my interruption, we can continue. Sullivan's next with public comment.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
In reference to the last hearing, freedom of speech support in the Sunshine Ordinance in the Brown Act. According to Merriam-Webster, the legal definition of freedom of speech is the right to express information, ideas, opinions, and free of government restrictions based on content subject only to reasonable limitations, especially as guaranteed by the First and Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. This is good considering the definition is really a series of court cases. Thus, in looking to see if freedom of speech is specifically protected, you would look for similar rights and reasonable limitations stated in public access laws. Bigger rights are often in the beginning and the limitations are listed later. The Brown Act, 54950, the people and delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. This is similarly repeated in the Sunshine section 67.1 B and D. 67.1G. However, when a person or entity is before a policy body or passive meeting body, that person and the public has the right to an open and public process. You cannot have limitations if you do not acknowledge a person's right to freedom of speech is protected. There are a number of limitations in the ordinance, such as Section 67.4, passive meetings, A3. Such gatherings of a business nature need not provide opportunity for comment by members of the public, although the person presiding may, in his or her discretion, entertain such questions or comments from spectators as may be relevant to the business of the gathering. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on. The third public commenter is Anonymous 3. Whenever you're ready, Cheryl.
Okay, just a second. Anonymous, are you ready?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
You have to speak up.
Hello?
You really have to speak up.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay.
You ready, sir?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is Anonymous number 3. I would agree generally with both of the prior commenters and on what they were saying on all 3 topics. I too am looking forward to whenever the discussion of packets comes up again. And I do think the state law changes are fantastic, especially for people who enjoy speaking truly anonymously at public meetings, as we should have the right to do. I also agree that there are restrictions on speech in the law, and there are already court cases that say you can't have extra statutory restrictions on public access, and so that should apply to public passive meetings as well. I'd normally tell you about a bunch of disasters in Sunshine here, but I haven't really encountered any that are new. At other committees, the district attorney finally admitted that he cannot just not produce communications because they would rather we, and not just me, but other members of the public as well, narrow by topic what communications of the district attorney we want to see. And they have been doing this to quite a few people, refusing to provide any records whatsoever based on the balancing test unless we narrow. And, as always happens to so many agencies, the day they came before SOTF, then they flip-flopped, they changed their mind, and they said, oh, no, we recognize we do have to produce records. The interesting thing here is I can see publicly how many different people they have just simply refused to do any search, refused to do anything based on the fact that it's not a topic limitation. And I also realized I can file my own ethics complaints without having to go through SOTF about these kinds of broad-based patterns and repetitions of violations, which I'll not be doing just against Mr. Boudin, but against a number of different elected officials. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And is that it for general public comment? Anyone else? All right, so we're concluded with general public comment. Cheryl, whenever you're ready, we can go to the next number on the agenda.
Item number 4, file number 21082, complaint filed by Anonymous against Phil Ginsburg and the Recreation Parks Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a records request in a complete and timely manner. 6725 by failing to respond in a complete and timely manner to an immediate disclosure request. 6725D by failing to provide responsive records on a rolling basis. 6726 for non-minimum withholding. 6727 by failing to provide written justifications for withholding. 6729-7A by failing to keep and preserve correspondence and records. 6729-5 by failing to keep and disclose a compliant Prop G calendar. 6734 for willful failure and official misconduct.
Okay. We're going to start on this matter. First, I'll ask, is the anonymous who is the complainant here present?
Yes, this is anonymous number 3. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't want to assume. And is anyone here on behalf of Rec and Park?
Yes, Tiffany Lynn Wilson.
Okay, great, thank you. And we will be hearing from each of you to start out. With these cases, there's a sort of a traditional way that the complaint committee procedures are run. And at this point, we're, for the most part, using that traditional process, although there are going to be discussions about whether we are doing things in the most efficient way. I think that that's a discussion it's been brought up, but I think it hasn't been put into a form that is usable. But I think this committee is probably going to be the committee where we generate a recommendation. I mean, I myself am still trying to figure out what exactly we do here in the committee versus what we do at the General Task Force, which is not duplicating effort. With that said, that's just sort of my spiel about what we do in a complaint committee, but the members will be having future discussions about these items. So let's go ahead and first we'll hear from the complaining party, anonymous number 3. Whenever Cheryl's ready.
Okay, you'll get 5 minutes, sir.
All right.
All right, are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is the anonymous complainant here. We can begin on P17, which is page 7 of the PDF. So in this case, as you may know, on June 8th of this year, a Board of Supervisors hearing was conducted, part of which included questioning by 2 supervisors, and then at the end, the president as well, of Department Head Mr. Ginsburg about his alleged knowledge of SF Parks Alliance's letter to Supervisor Chan regarding a playground in her district, which was characterized by the Board of Supervisors as threatening the supervisor, and inequity in park resource allocation and other things. And there were responses from the department head about his level of knowledge. They weren't very specific, but they were pretty broad that he had knowledge that they were upset. And so during that actual Board of Supervisors meeting, I immediately filed a records request to both him and his custodian employee, who is before you today, about his communications, meetings, and telephone calls with SF Parks Alliance, and his preparatory material made for the Board of Supervisors hearing. And about a month later, they had simply said nothing at all. There was no response whatsoever. I filed a complaint. We know that Mr. Ginsburg read my email, read my request, because I got read receipts of his reading my emails. And then eventually, multiple months after I filed the request, and after the complaint was filed, they eventually did give some records on this complaint. One of the issues is that one of the requests was filed using NextRequest. And still, to this day, they have never responded to that 21-2834 NextRequest request. That request is behind a login wall. I don't believe making me create accounts to sign in or agree to NextRequest private terms of use complies with the court interpretation of the PRA, which does not allow any, I think I've discussed this before, full task force, doesn't allow any extra statutory restrictions on access. There's no reason for them to lock these requests behind a login wall. When they gave the calendars, these calendars lack any description of what he discussed when he met with the CEO of SF Parks Alliance. He's not allowed to do that. He must record what the general statement of issues that he discussed with Mr. Ginsburg in every single meeting, and he did not do that. And they violated the various timeliness clauses of the PRA, even if you consider the mayor's suspension order, since they did not respond within 10 or 24 days at all. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we will hear from I think it was Lynn Wilson, for the Rec and Park Department when Cheryl is ready with the timer.
Just a second, we'll be right with you. Ms. Lynn Wilson, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you may begin.
We agree that the board here has jurisdiction, and that yes, there was timeliness issues. I'm so sorry that the next request was locked. I did not know that it was, and like I said in our last meeting, it's been very crazy as far as workload goes, but I will unlock that tonight for you. I'm so sorry that it was locked, and really as far as the calendars go, I can't attest to that. I'm not the person who keeps his calendar, so yes, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions? Oh, yeah. Are there any questions of either the speaking parties? Okay, I have a couple of things. It sounds like, let me ask Anonymous first. So is this also your understanding that the access to the records has not been unlocked and that you're still waiting for that to be unlocked so you can have the proper access?
Yeah, I checked it right before this meeting, 21-2834, which is this, I believe this complaint, not the commission one. Neither of them are accessible. I don't remember which is which, but 21-2834 and 21-2835 are still inaccessible. Okay.
And that's you've seen this, how NextRequest works. Your claim, I believe, is that anytime one is forced to sign up with NextRequest, that is a requirement that is in violation of the public records laws. Is that your claim?
Correct. I believe it violates 6253.3 and the interpretation from County of Santa Clara versus California First Amendment Coalition 2009.
Okay, got it.
Stop for a second. I just wanted to hear what the questions were. Anonymous 3.
Could you repeat that, please, for Ms. Litchfield?
Sure. The two citations are, I believe that making me sign up or agree to terms of service violates Government Code 6253.3 and/or the interpretation of the court in County of Santa Clara versus California First Amendment Coalition, 2009.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one more issue with Anonymous, which is there was a reference to you possibly filing a separate claim with regard to a passive meeting body potential issue. Is that a claim that you have filed?
So there's two different parts, two different halves of that response. So here is whether or not they can redact that portion of the calendar entry. That would be here. What I filed separately, and I don't know if I have a file number. I might have a file number. I definitely filed at the Ethics Commission. I'm not sure if I have an SOTF file number yet about that, which is the fact that I'm alleging, did not allow me after inquiry to attend what I believe is a passive meeting body. So the redactions are in this complaint, but the fact that I'm not allowed to attend that meeting would not be in this complaint. Does that make sense?
Yes. So okay. I just wanted to figure out if we wanted to handle the meetings part of this here. It sounds like that will better be done in the other proceeding that you have. And I think that's a good way to go because it makes it more clear. All right. Yet we do have potentially a records violation here because of the redaction, and that's something we will consider here with, of course, the proviso that what we're doing here is we're not really making any final decisions. We're just thinking about, I mean, we're looking at, are documents public, records public, is there jurisdiction? And then maybe sometimes we are going to go into clarification issues, and maybe sometimes we're going to make recommendations. That's sort of my summary of what it is we're doing here today. So I have no further questions. Any other questions? If not, we can among the members, we can talk about what we want to do with this.
Yeah, I guess my only issue in looking at this was just that this requests were made after this mayor's fifth supplement suspended some of the provisions that are allegedly being violated. I think there are others that are in play, and clearly the CPRA is still in play and all of that, but it might be worth going forward, just kind of trying to highlight what might, what is in here that is not potentially covered by the mayor's fifth supplement. I don't know if Anonymous wants to speak to that at all, since they brought the complaint. But
sorry,
what's
the?
Well, the mayor's fifth supplement, which is in effect during this period, right, which goes into effect March 23rd, and says things like, let's see, basically allowing the city to rely on balancing tests, allowing the city not to necessarily meet certain deadlines, although the city still has to meet the CPRA deadlines. So that was just something I was looking at. It seems like the IDR wouldn't really be in effect. The possibility of drawing on an immediate disclosure request, and that was one of the provisions that you talked about, wouldn't really be in effect because of the fifth supplement.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll say exactly what's in my footnote. I understand what you're saying. I don't personally concede that the mayor's COVID orders are necessarily valid. And the reason I cite them in complaints is if a court ever deems that the mayor did exceed her authority, or maybe they're no longer in effect, I'm always going to reserve the right to hold those. So I understand why you're saying what you're saying, but that's why I allege them in each complaint anyway. So.
Okay, but I think that even with those exceptions aside, I think there's cause to take this to the full task force.
Okay, and that issue may arise. I think we're going to probably be seeing that issue in other cases. I don't know if that's necessarily a core issue in this particular case, but if not, we're definitely going to see it. And I agree. I think there's no reason not to move this on to the full task force. It seems like our job is pretty clean cut on this one. So anyone want to craft a motion? Go ahead if you want to.
This is Member Stein. I will make a motion that these records are public, they're under our jurisdiction, and that we should bring this in front of the full task force.
I will second that. This is Member Forsley.
Okay, so then we have a motion, and Ms. Lejay, we could go ahead and hear public comment on this matter.
Okay, just a second. Do we have public commenters?
Sullivan.
Yeah, I heard
Anyone
you.
else? Sullivan's
Okay.
number one. Anyone else? Okay, let's go ahead. Let's hear from Sullivan.
Just a moment. Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
All next requests should be open to the public from the start of a request. Withholding a next request from the public is a violation of CPRA and the Sunshine Ordinance 67.21a. Without unreasonable delay, without requiring an appointment, permit the public record or any segregable portion of the record to be inspected and examined by any person. California Public Record Act 6253B, each state or local agency upon a request for a copy of records that reasonably describes an identifiable record or record shall make the records promptly available to any person. There should be no doubt that promptly available to any person means. It does not say promptly to the requester only. See 6253D, an agency cannot delay or obstruct the inspection of or copy of public records. Custodians of records using next request can make a request public to anyone at any time. Now they only make it public to anyone after fully completing the request. Public Works does this also. This is an unreasonable delay. Making the request public would promptly to the public would negate any need to sign in. This order should be taken care of within anonymous 3 complaints without someone having to file a separate complaint. The order should go to all city departments using any electronic publishing of records. I have sent a 150-word to Ms. Ledger on this. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any other public commenters on this item?
Yes.
We have
Yeah,
a second. And could you identify yourself? Or
That's David Steinberg, Public Works.
okay, when Cheryl's ready.
David, are you ready?
Yep, I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Cheryl. I just wanted to clarify something, something that Mr. Sullivan said that's actually inaccurate. The with next request, there is an option to have everything published or only released to the requester, or either way works. Public Works, actually, despite what he said, we actually do have everything public right from the beginning of the request. And this is actually something that we changed our defaults. I found out during a Custodians of Record quarterly meeting. We have regular meetings where we discuss best practices, and I was unaware that you could set the default to publish. Otherwise, when we get anonymous complaints, I always set them to, personally, my department, I always set them to public, but we've actually changed the default, so everything is public all the time. So I'm not sure what Mr. Sullivan was confused about, but you know, in the past, we publish things we release things to the public. Every time we release a document, we release it to the public, and we publish the entire request. That was our old practice. Now everything is always public. Anything that's released, any messages, unless it's just a message to the requester. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I will say that I appreciate the comment by Mr. Steinberg that they as a practice now open these up, because I do think that just from my own reading of this, it looks like the idea that you could limit would be, it looks like it would be a violation of at least state law, probably also sunshine. But if we do run into that, we may have to make a decision based on it. Although as we sit here today, we can't make any kind of general proclamation. Okay, we're still on public comment, and Ms. Leger, let's see if there's anyone else for public comment on this item.
Do we have further public commenters?
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, let's go ahead with the vote.
Okay. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Chair Schmidt?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Moved by Member Stein, seconded by Member Forsley, to find that the records are public, there is jurisdiction, and to refer the matter to the full task force. We set?
Yeah, we can go on to the next item, which is somewhat connected with that one.
Yes. Item number 5, file number 21083. Complaint filed by Anonymous against Mark Buell and the Recreation and Parks Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code sections 6721 by failing to respond to a records request in a complete and or timely manner, 6725 by failing to respond in a complete and timely manner to an immediate disclosure request, 6725D by failing to provide responsive records on a rolling basis, 6726 for non-minimal withholding, 6727 by failing to provide written justification for withholding, 6729-7A by failing to keep and preserve correspondence and records, 6729-5 by failing to keep and disclose a compliant Prop G calendar, 64 for willful failure and official misconduct.
Okay, my first question, is there somebody present to speak on behalf of Mr. Buell and the commission? Anyone?
It's just still Lyd Wilson from Rec and Park.
Okay, so you're speaking on their behalf today?
Well, can I just say that we would like to, so I'm actually really sick right now and need to jump off this call, but I just wanted to say that the board has jurisdiction of the next 2 items, if that's okay.
I'm sorry, you want to say that for this and the next item, you don't contest that they should go? is just jurisdiction, it should go to the full task force. Okay,
Yeah.
and you're 6, so I'll just take that as your response on each item. And I will excuse
Yes.
you in that situation.
Thank you.
Excuse me, before you disappear, could I get your
Hello?
Hi, could I get your name before you go offline?
Sure. This is Tiffany Lynn Wilson.
Oh, Tiffany.
Yes. Hi, Cheryl.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and hear from the complainant, Anonymous, and I believe it's Anonymous 3.
It is.
Whenever Cheryl's ready.
Okay, Anonymous, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, you got 5 minutes. You may
Thank you
begin.
very much. Thank you. This is the anonymous complainant. I hope Ms. Lynn Wilson gets better. And thank you for not contesting jurisdiction and going on to the full task force. On this one, this is a separate next request. So this one wasn't done by email. It was just made by next request. I don't have access to, if they have responded, I don't have access to it. To be clear, I don't believe they've ever responded to this request. And the reason I don't believe that is even if you keep the request login only, which I'm not going to go in and access, it will send you an email saying if an update has happened, even if you can't get into the request. And they have never, as far as I know, on this one, ever done anything. And I don't know if they're confused that one of the last one was about the department head's communications, while this one was about the commissioner's communications, which are separate local agencies. I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, they need to respond to this request. It's the same exact complaint letter. I would say, and maybe I didn't make this clear, if you could remove 6729-7A, 6729-5, and 6734, since there's no department head here, those are not relevant to this, kind of second half of these similar complaints. So
Okay.
It should just be.
I didn't get those citations that you were wanting to read.
Sure. Can you from the agenda packet going forward and the kind of complaint summary, 6729-7A, 6729-5, and 6734 should be removed. And the complaint summary, as a member Stein mentioned, it actually doesn't list the CPRA one, which may be one that you care about, even though I alleged it. So CPRA Government Code 6253C should be added to this complaint summary. I'm happy to tell you again, but it's basically the same thing, but this time with communications of the commission. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, any questions for Anonymous? I don't think I have it. Actually, I do have one clarifying question, which is, you haven't received anything on this, have you?
I've never received a response to this request, the next request, 21-2835, I think it is. Yeah, 21-2835. What they did, I've noticed, is in their response to the other request by email, they've provided some emails that happen to go to the commissioners. However, that's not necessarily responsive to this request, but that might be emails between the department head and the commission. So I still need any response at all to 21-2835, which is the one for the commission itself. So.
Okay, and in this one, you don't know if there's a next request block as there is in the prior case, correct?
No, I know that they've blocked me because I can't even read my original request. It's one of the problems trying to send this complaint. Both of them, 21-2834 and 21-2835, are blocked on that next request right before this meeting when I checked.
Okay. And so this is not a question, but I'll clarify something I said before, which is I think we probably do want to address the general next request issue when these two complaints go forward, because it is germane to what's happening here. No further questions from me. Members, anything? Nothing else. Okay. What should we do about this? Seems like maybe goes pretty much like the last one.
Yeah, I would make the same motion pretty much as before. Can we, in our motion, say that we want to add the CPRA section?
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, we might as well just add it, and then.
Are you moving, Member Stein?
Yes, I would like to. Is it 6253? Is that the CPRA section?
Let's ask Anonymous 3 if he can identify that section.
It's 6253C.
Sure.
Yeah.
See, is that correct?
It's 6253C and 6253.3. You can see it on P68. Thank you.
625.
Yeah, both of those.
Did you catch that, Cheryl?
Yeah, I got 6253C and
6253.3.
6253.
The CPRA. Did you get that, Laura?
Yes.
Actually, to be clear, there's multiple things in my filing of the complaint that's not in the complaint summary. Do you want me to read all the missing sections, or do you just want to copy it from the thing?
No, I just didn't see the CPRA clauses in your well, I saw 53.3. I did see that, but I didn't see this other one. So
it's on. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I mean, I didn't see 6253. Sorry. I did see 6253.3. I didn't see 6253C.
It's on page 65 and 60. Yeah, it's on page 65 on the complaint intake form. 6253C is the very first thing I cite. 6253.3 is one of the last ones, and 6721K is the other one that is from the summary.
$62.
6721K.
6721K isn't even in my.
Anonymous, are you sure about that?
I don't think that's right.
I am certain. It is, again, it's on page P65, which is page 3 of the PDF, where you asked me to list all the sections of law I'm alleging. All 3 that I mentioned are listed right there.
I'm sorry, but my copy of the government code, the last section is 6270.7.
Oh, okay. Let me clarify. CPRA 6253C, CPRA 6253.3, and the other missing section is Sunshine Ordinance 67.21A. Apologies.
Okay, 67.21. Sorry, I'm just checking that one. Yeah, let's put all those in. I'd like to add those in just so that they're considered by the task force when they get this. Especially given the confusion with the mayor's proclamation. So I just want to make sure that the CPRA sections are listed in the complaint. But along with that, I would just again say that these are public records under our jurisdiction and that this case should go before the full task force.
I will again second that. This is Member Forsley.
Great. Okay, so let's go ahead, Ms. Leger. We can hear any public comment on this item. Are there any public commenters on this item?
Sullivan.
All right, Ms. Sullivan.
We have other public commenters? Looks like Mr. Sullivan is the only public commenter. Do we have another public commenter? All right. Mr. Sullivan, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
I hope all the other departments in the city that use the next request use the default setting that Public Works is now using. It was my comments wasn't specifically a dig to Public Works or Mr. Steinberg, and I'm happy to hear that at one time it was not right, and now it is right, and it's open to the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And unless there's other public comment on the matter, let's go ahead and have a vote on this.
Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Chair Schmidt?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Moved by Member Stein, second by Member Forsley to find that the records are public. There is jurisdiction and refer the matter to the full task force and include violations of the CPRA 6253C, 6253.3, and Sunshine Ordinance 6721K.
Very good. And before we go to our next matter, I had a request, administrative request, that we have a 10-minute break at this point. And so let's go ahead. Cheryl, could you tell us what time people should come back?
Okay, right now I have us at 6:28. If people could come back at 6:38.
Okay.
We will keep the recording on. I can't stop it in the middle of a hearing, but in 10 minutes.
Okay, great.
Thank
And
you.
everyone will turn off their microphones and cameras. Thank you.
Chair Schmidt, it looks like all members of the complaint committee are present. Shall we resume the hearing?
Yes, yes. Let's go ahead with our next item.
Item number 6, file number 21088, complaint filed by Mark Sullivan against the Recreation and Parks Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721B, 6726, 6727, and 6729-7A, and the California Government Code 6253C, by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and a complete manner, failing to keep withholding to a minimum, failing to provide justification for withholding, and failing to maintain and disclose correspondence.
All right. It does sound like we have Mr. Sullivan here, but we probably do not have anyone on behalf of the Rec and Park because she was sick, but she said she's not contesting jurisdiction. And so let's first allow Mr. Sullivan to speak to the matter, and then we will maybe have questions and decide what we want to do in terms of sending it to the full task force. When you're ready, Cheryl, we'll hear from Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan, are you ready to speak, sir?
Yes.
Okay. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
This is a straightforward complaint of failing to respond to a public record request in a timely manner. It may also involve failure to do a complete record search of all correspondence in that, besides email, I asked for any text messages, and it is unclear if a full search was done. After no response from Rec and Park within 10 days, I shortly thereafter petitioned Supervisor of Records, and Rec and Park produced 58 records, mostly emails. There are 2 goals I had with filing this complaint with the task force. Rec and Park seems to not comply with Sunshine Ordinance or California Public Record Act unless forced to do so. And I wanted to impress upon Rec and Park the seriousness of complying with public access laws and give the task force the opportunity. I know several requests by other requesters that have never been completed with besides anonymous number 3. There's supposed to be a task force complaint by one of the requesters that is waiting. The other Rec and Park request violations of other requesters, the requesters have not filed for various reasons. 2, my email to file the complaint P94, I tried to get the task force to expedite the hearing when my complaint turn came around. The short 6721E allows for the expedited order of determination and uses the word task force may conduct a public hearing concerning the records request denial. I was unsuccessful, but may have spurred other initiatives to expedite the violation. So there's the word may in there, and it doesn't mean that they have to conduct a public hearing to do an order of determination. In the continued spirit of expediting, I will also authorize the full task force using the public complaint procedure 7D. After initial in-person appearance, the complainant may authorize the task force to proceed with the hearing in absentia on the complaint without the complainant's presence at the hearing. The only information that will be considered from the complainant will be the submitted written documents or information provided at prior hearings. The complainant waives their right to provide testimony if they authorize the task force to proceed without their attendance. And that's what I plan to do for the full task force meeting. And I thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions from the members? I want to just, Mr. Sullivan, thank you for pointing out the fact that this doesn't have to be done with the procedure that we're doing here today, with public hearing where, complainant speaks, et cetera, et cetera. I think if someone were to look at how this is being done right now, and then you look back at what the ordinance says, they may not see exactly why it evolved to where it is right now. I'm hoping that, maybe there's some adjustments that we can figure out to allow things to go through a lot faster in the way that you're talking about. So I appreciate you bringing that up. One question I have for you is, you're saying that you did get records, but you think there may be other records that were not properly searched for. Is that a fair assessment of what happened for you in this case?
Yes, it's possible. I mean, I was hoping that you could ask the representative from Rec and Park if they did a full search was done. But I got like the emails. It's hard to say if they use text message or not.
So did they not tell you the nature of the search or searches that they did do?
No.
Okay. I know that there's other cases where they'll tell you, we did this search, that search. It sounds like that wasn't provided to you. Okay. And the documents that you think you may not have gotten because of failure to search properly, could you tell us maybe why you think other documents are out there that you have not received?
I do not know. I cannot tell you that. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a possibility. There's one document that talks about a meeting and it gives the agenda, but there is no minutes that were given from the meeting, and that's a possible document. But I was looking for my personal interest is more in the in messaging, the talk between the people. But so.
Okay.
I didn't pursue it further.
And in this case, how did you handle the next request restriction? Did you just go ahead and agree to the terms, or have you held back and not agreed to the terms, or were the documents released to you because they decided to make it public and waive the next request restriction?
I don't know. I have an account with Next Request under my email address, but a lot of people know me, so it doesn't. I'm not trying to. I can't be anonymous.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so that's not really. I saw it noted in some of your documents. I didn't know if you wanted to make a challenge here. It sounds like this may not be the case where that's an issue. All right. Thank you.
No, it's not an issue, but I think it's an issue for the public in general.
Sure. Got it. That's all the questions I have. Okay, members. If there's
I had two questions. I wasn't clear on this violation of 67.29-7, failure to maintain and disclose correspondence. Maybe this is very similar to what Member Schmidt has already asked, but did you have any specific reason for this allegation?
No, I don't know unless she was asked. She did a full search.
And then I'm wondering. Oh, go ahead.
I just said that it's possible.
Okay.
Involves failure. And
then I had as a question in my notes whether any email records were provided, because I couldn't see, you had just listed we just saw, I guess, sort of URLs of the PDFs that had been released to you, and it didn't look like anything in particular was email, but you mentioned in your statement that you were provided with some email records, and I'm just wondering, can you just describe the content of those records?
So the subject matter was the Richmond Park Playground thing, and I did basically the same thing Anonymous 3 did, was that I, after Mr. Ginsburg gave his talk at the Board of Supervisors Committee, I did a public record request on Richmond Playground and to see what he was talking about and how people were corresponding.
So those are records related to people who were inquiring about the Richmond Playground?
Oh, well, no, they weren't inquiring. It was between SF Park Alliance, which was funding most of the renovation, and Rec and Park. And then there were some other emails from other people.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at is, did it seem to you like it was a keyword search that led to those emails? Are you feeling like those emails were not systematically searched, or?
It's just unclear. All I did was get these, 58 records, and that was it.
Okay.
No other comments or anything else.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think when we go to the full task force, it might be worth asking that question of the respondent. What exactly did you search for? What was your search?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think it would have been much better if Mr. Sullivan was informed of what that search is. It makes everything smoother. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's just something that we need to get them to improve on. All right. Any other questions, or anyone want to make a motion on this? It seems like at least we've got timeliness. I'm not quite sure. I know that, there's somewhat of a claim that, well, maybe there's some other records that could have been found, but we're not quite sure what they might be. That's a little bit iffy. But on the other hand, do we say, well, since he doesn't know what they searched for, how's he to know? I don't know. But if nothing else, we can move it forward just based on the timing issue.
Okay. I mean, I can make a motion again if we want. So this is Member Stein, and I will just again say that these are public documents under our jurisdiction, and we believe the task force should consider this case.
I'll second. So we can.
A violation of the ordinance specifically? I mean, you mentioned it, so.
Well, we can say that we believe there was a timeliness violation.
So that would be a 6721.
Yeah, although I would want to put it under the CPRA as well, because again, this is a case that happens during the emergency when that fifth proclamation is out there. So I think it's 6253C, right? I know, 6254C. No, that's not right. 60. Where are we? 6253C.
6253C. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second. So we can, when Cheryl's ready, we can see if we have public comment on this.
Do we have any public commenters on item number 6?
Anonymous number 3.
Anyone else? We have number 1 is anonymous 3. Okay, Cheryl, whenever you're ready, let's start with anonymous 3.
Sir, are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think it's great that the possibility of, faster determinations on stuff like this, as both the chair and the complainant discussed, is being possibly considered. This kind of case seems like a great opportunity to use the thing that is currently in pilot, but in my opinion should be expanded to everyone, which is, they clearly, I'm presuming, they admit that they violated the ordinance here, or at least not contested. And so it would have been great to be able to use that process here. I do think that your current procedure, your administrative process, requires the respondent to tell not necessarily the complainant, but at least the task force, the scope of the search. How did they search? What did they do? What are the keywords they used? And if they had done so, and they did not follow your process, right? They have no response in this packet, as far as I can tell, none whatsoever, not even a response saying, hey, we'll get back to you, as they did in my prior complaints. With Mr. Sullivan, they don't even tell the task force that, hey, we're busy, we'll get you a response at some point. And that response to the task force should have a statement, as you ask them to declare, how did you search, what was the scope of the search, and then you would know, because you've seen this, I think it was in the Andrews versus Boudin case, unless you know what they searched, you don't know whether they violated the law. Because if they only search the email, and now only begrudgingly after you poke and shove them, then they search the text messages, you never know where the text message is there at the time they received this request, and now they're not there. You never know. And the only way to force them to turn over all the records is to make sure that they understand that the search is required at the time the request is made, and not, N weeks later when they have time to it. I understand you can give rolling responses. You might not, have enough time, but there's a reason the CPRA deadlines are still there. You have to do the search immediately, and within 10 days, give them the result of the search, even if you don't have the results, the actual records to produce, which you may do, in a rolling basis afterwards. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this item? There being none, let's go ahead and have a vote.
Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Chair Schmidt?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Moved by Member Stein, second by Chair Schmidt, that the records are public. There is jurisdiction, and refer the matter to the Sunshine Task Force and find a violation for timeliness under 6721 and CPRA 6253C. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So when you're ready, Cheryl, we'll move on to item number 7.
Yep, just a second. Item number 7, file number 21069, complaint filed by Mark Sullivan against David Steinberg and the Department of Public Works for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.3 by failing to provide definitions, and 6721 by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and or complete manner.
I believe both parties are probably still here. I know we've heard from them. So let's go ahead and give each of them a chance to speak. First, Mr. Sullivan, the complaining party. When Ms. Leger is ready.
Sir, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
When I filed this complaint request, I thought there would only be a few records produced. It came back as 13,000 after limiting or narrowing it to 7,500 records during COVID time. I was more than willing to work on a more focused request, but only with help. Besides the closing of the request and denying of public records, violating immediate disclosure. The underlying issues of this complaint are: one, how much the custodian has to help make a focus request. What is the requirement? Mr. Steinberg claimed the suspension of section 67.21C by the mayor's proclamation, and the approximate number of emails of the records is responsive to the request. The proclamation does not and cannot suspend state law CPRA 6253.1, which is basically the same language. The task force upholds the mayor's proclamation. It must consider violations of the California Public Record Act. Two, I made multiple attempts to narrow the request, even though Mr. Steinberg stated, we are not requiring you to narrow this request. That's on P124 at the bottom of the page. After narrowing, including the time period, the 3 records that were produced were outside of the narrow time period. I stated this, which seems to have prompted the closure of the request. A custodian or record should not be allowed to resort to going back to focusing of the request. The custodian of record should not be allowed to disregard the focusing of the request and resort back to the original request. Number 3, Mr. Steinberg wrote P123. We do not have the ability to segregate emails that were previously released or that will be released in response to this request. Yet Mr. Steinberg has pointed requesters to other requests on next request with responsive records to their requests. So some ability to know what has been previously been made public exists. Regardless, I argue that a city department's inability to segregate records and thus not be able to make a focused response, thus inflating the numbers of records, is not the responsibility of the requester. Their lack of searchability cannot be one of the underlying issues that causes a dismissal of a request. 4, Mr. Steinberg, in closing the request, uses the balancing test and resorts back to the 2 years with the inflated numbers of 13,000 of responsive records, and saying the time spent is the justification of withholding. This is in P119. This is a misuse of the balancing test. 6255 balancing test is specific to records, exemptions under express provisions, or the facts of a particular case. Note, this does not say facts of a particular request. 6255 is not about the amount of records or lack of search abilities or time required. It's not an exemption. Number 5, underlying all this is the use of the mayor's 2 proclamations suspending parts of the Sunshine Ordinance, which I believe are not allowed by the California Constitution, and Section 67.36, Sunshine Ordinance supersedes other local laws. The purpose of this section is not to allow officials a way to stop or slow public access to public information outside of the Sunshine Ordinance. I filed a complaint with the task force on this. A task force member or members reviewed the complaint, stated they did not understand. This may have been a problem of the form that I used. I withdrew the complaint. I would resubmit the complaint in another form if the task force is willing to hear and vote on the complaint of whether the mayor's proclamations
30 seconds.
suspending the Sunshine Ordinance is valid or not. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Now we can hear from Mr. Steinberg.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Cheryl.
Yeah, just a second. David, are you ready?
I am ready.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. This is the Task Force Committee. I'll pretty much stand on what I submitted as a response. Public Works really doesn't dispute the task force has jurisdiction and the records are public. However, we would ask for a recommendation of no violation. First of all, the complaint cites two alleged violations, one of 67.3, which is definitions. I honestly have no idea what that complaint would be. 67.3 merely lists definitions. There's nothing to violate. In his initial complaint, he alleged violations of Sunshine Ordinance 67.25A. This provision has been suspended by a mayoral proclamation, meaning there can be no violation. He also alleged violation of 67.21C. This also has been suspended by a mayoral proclamation, meaning there can be no violation. However, it should be noted that despite the suspension of this provision, I did provide Mr. Sullivan with the form and nature of the records maintained by the department, specifically the number of emails that were responsive to his request. For 6721B alleged violations, we released records within the time frame allowed by law for one item of the request. For the other item, we made multiple attempts to work with Mr. Sullivan to narrow the request in such a way that we would be able to release documents for a reasonable time frame. When our efforts were unsuccessful, and despite repeated suggestions to Mr. Sullivan that he narrow the focus of the request, we relied on Mayor Breed's proclamation, and we used our authority that was provided to us to make use of the balancing test as the basis for withholding the records. We have, Mr. Sullivan contends despite what he said, he really made minimal amounts to narrow the request. We offered several different suggestions, and he rebuffed all of them. To his point that he said that we closed it after going back to the original dates. That's also incorrect. He specifically, and I can show you the note. He limited one of the two items to specific dates, and we still told him there were 7,500. He did not limit the other item of the request, and those three records that we did release to him, which he says were outside of the modified time frame. First of all, I don't think it matters. If his complaint is that we gave him more documents than we should have, I don't see how that's a violation. But regardless, he only narrowed one of the two requests. And as I said, he repeatedly refused to materially narrow his request in such a way that would make it possible to fill in a reasonable time, or he asked for modifications that were not possible or feasible. For example, he said, don't give me anything that you've already given me in this other request. I have no way of doing it other than looking at each and every one of the documents and comparing them, which would take more time than just going through them all again. Between Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Tomasevich, and Mr. Hooper, we've released thousands and thousands of records in response to about 40 requests related to green benefit districts. I'm happy to respond to them, but it would take years to go through 7,500 emails. And when the proclamation is lifted and you want me to go through it, I'll spend a certain amount of time every week until I retire and give it to them. But we followed the rules that are in place, and that's all we can do. So, and I would just ask that you recommend a finding of no violation, because no violation exists. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any questions for either of the parties from the members?
I guess I just have one question for either of the parties. Is, there was a lot of discussion in this file about attempts to narrow the request, because it does seem like it was a pretty broad request, but I don't get the sense in the emails that there was any in-depth discussion between the parties about what was being looked for and how best to narrow it. And I'm wondering, did those discussions happen outside of those emails, or is it just what we see in the email that has to do with attempts to narrow the request or to give advice about how to do it?
Who are you asking?
Either party.
Either. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we pick one and then go to the other? Mind if we start with the complainant?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we can start with the complainant. Was there any communication outside of what we saw in the emails correspondence between you and the Department of Public Works. I mean, sorry, the Department of Public Works about how to narrow these requests?
No,
Okay.
they're all in the records that you see there.
Okay.
How about from respondent now? The same question.
Sure. So I'm looking on next request now. We sent a note on April 29 saying, our IT team ran the search, identified, returned more than 13,000 responsive records. We estimate it take about 4 years to produce them. To facilitate a prompt reply, we suggest you limit your request to a shorter time frame and/or more limited reply. So he wrote back on the same day saying, okay, he changed the start date. So we did that. So I ran another search and we found 7,500 documents, which again, I said, please let us know if you'd like to further narrow the scope of your request. He wrote and said, I shouldn't have to narrow the request if you don't want to. And I wrote back and said, we just pointed out that due to the volume, it would take more than 2 years to respond. We suggest you limit your request to a narrow time frame or revise your request by email account or additional keywords. That was on May 3rd. And then he wrote back that day, he narrowed item 1, to the narrower times, which we did. I went through it again. We said, appear to misunderstand our communication. We're not requiring you to narrow the request. However, we're suggesting you do so in order to help us get you records in a more timely manner. Regarding the most recent adjustments, any records from March 20th to today from the Green Benefit Program Manager, we can't. We said that wasn't a valid request because the city attorneys advise us that you can't ask for all emails from someone. You have to narrow it. I forget what the phrase is. There's a requirement that you identify with reasonable particularity the records sought. So we told them we can't give you everything from someone's email account. And again, I said we renew our request and suggestion that we narrow the focus of item 1, so we're able to provide you with the documents you're seeking in a timely fashion. If you choose not to do so, we'll continue to process that portion and estimate we'll be able to get it to you by the end of 2023.
Okay.
So he's going on beyond the question.
Thank you. Let me go to Member Stein. Has he answered your question?
Yeah, I mean, I did read that in the file. I do see that this is a pretty broad request. And, it's not that I care why it's being requested, but it seems like given the nature of the conversation that happened, it wasn't effectively narrowed. But it's not that they didn't say they wouldn't give it either. And I'm presuming that the reason there was so many emails is that a keyword that's being asked for is Green Benefits District, and you have an employee who's in charge of that, so all their emails would come up.
This is David. Yeah, essentially that was why we couldn't. Right. Yeah, we basically had to block out everything. I had to do this with other requests where, people ask for a phrase that is in someone's signature line, and so I can't go and give you everything from that person. However, what I've ended up having to do is when they've asked me to search other people's email accounts with those phrases, unfortunately, anything that they receive from that person has it, and I'm I'm working at a couple of those requests
He's
now,
reframing
that's
things.
Mr. Sullivan, I think the question is to Mr. Steinberg only right now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna interject just a couple of questions. First, Mr. Sullivan, I know that at one point you were told there's 13,000 documents and it'd take 4 years, and then there was 7,500, it would take 2 years. But clarify for me, you never said, I don't want those documents, did you?
No, I never said I didn't want those documents. I was willing to narrow the focus of and I was surprised at how many records were available, because basically this was from the start of COVID, and how many records are people coming in to inquire into establishing a green benefit district outside of previous green benefit district neighborhood efforts, which I listed. I was not against removing the signature line of just the emails that had green benefit district manager in there. That was in my interest. I never got a chance to respond that yes, that was fine.
Yeah, because they just closed it, right?
He just closed it way before I was able to even help narrow it. And it's hard to narrow something when all you're being given is this is the amount of records that is produced.
Yeah, and before it was not narrowed, but it still was a request that you wanted to be answered, correct? Even if it wasn't narrowed.
That's right. I was basically looking for new information from the time of COVID started.
Got it.
And
Okay.
I wasn't expecting any.
And question for Mr. Steinberg. There was one limitation where the number went from 13,000 to 7,500. And let me ask you, how do you come up with the estimate, say with the 7,500, that it would take 2 years to process?
I based that on, I basically timed myself, where for how long it takes to view, redact, release emails, and especially, and I will say especially for ones like this where there are generally a lot of public letters from the public where I have to redact personal information, email addresses, and such. And it's worked out to about 1.5 minutes per email. But I actually, I'm a little more generous, and I figure it takes me 1 minute per email. And it's proven to be pretty accurate when I give people estimations of, as required, if we're going to go beyond the 10 or the 24 days, and I give them an estimation of how long it's going to take to get it. That's held up pretty much true. Where, even ones where I'm telling them it's 5 months out. It seems to be just about right within a week or so. So I'm fairly confident that when I say 2 years, it really would be 2 years. It's not like it would be 3 months. It might be 22 months, or it might be 27 months.
And this is all but it's all on you. You don't have anyone who can pitch in on this work, I take it.
No, I actually do have someone who's helping me.
Okay.
And so, and she does a first pass on things, and then I have to go through and finalize and make sure the redactions are right. So, I'm often able to do it a little bit faster, but not substantially, because when we get past when we invoke the rule of reason, we get past that 24 days, we limit the amount of time we spend on each request, because we have so many requests that, that's what the city attorney advises us to do, is that, and I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of how many how many minutes for each of these requests I'm spending each week, and make sure that I spend the minimum amount, at least the minimum amount on each one, so that all of them are getting attention and we're processing, on an ongoing basis. And to what Mr. Sullivan said, I must have sent 7 or 8 notes saying there are too many. We can't get it to you in a reasonable time. Come up with different keywords or specific email accounts or time frames. It's not like I just said, no, this is ridiculous, I'm going to close it. I spent weeks and weeks and weeks, and a number of, I think I can count them, but I think there's 7 or 8 of messages where I said, here's how many there are. We will not be able to get it to you in a timely fashion. And when he basically refused, I invoked the rule, the balancing test, and closed it. Because as I said,
but, yeah, you closed it
not
out.
being able to. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You closed it out because he was not giving you a further reduction from the 7,500. Is that accurate?
Essentially, yeah. Because based again, like I said, we couldn't. I've already released thousands of documents to him and to his associates, and so the likelihood is that if I had to go through those 7,500, the vast majority of them probably are things that I've already released to him. But I can't. I can't. I don't have a system that we can't scan them and eliminate duplicates from different requests. So I'd have to go through it. So keep balancing the fact that it would take all that time and all the resources versus the fact that, and given the fact that he's probably received the vast majority of these already, I invoked the balancing test.
So for pretty much at least say 7,000 of these 7,500, give or take, maybe probably 7,400 of them, you said, well, because of 6255, we're actually just going to close this. Isn't that, that's kind of how this thing ended up, right?
If I'm understanding you correctly, then yeah. I mean, we determined that there was a greater. Yes, I'll just say yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, this is my window.
No more questions. Members, what do you think of this one?
Sorry, I just have one more question for
Sure.
Mr. Sullivan. Can you tell me what kind of information do you think they could have provided you about the nature or description of the records that would have helped you more effectively narrow your request? Do you have any examples of what kind of information you were hoping to get?
Yeah. So first of all, when you're just given, first of all, I want to say that I did not refuse to want to narrow the request at any point in time. I was trying. No, but I'm saying this because he said that I did, and that was one of the reasons why he closed the thing. And that is not the case. I was trying to come up with words. When you're just given a number, every time you come up with a word or told that that's not that they can't search for that, then I was working to try and figure out what type of words, keywords that would limit it even further. And it's all I was looking for was new activity. He talks about requests like way over a year ago about giving thousands of records. I'm not interested. I even said, don't include those, and specifically those benefit districts that have already been talked about. I'm not interested. I'm just looking for new documents that produced from the start of the COVID year on. And part of it, the first part was inquiries. I can't understand how you can get, up to 7,500 records in a year during COVID when the government supposedly shut down. And I don't understand how people could, like, a whole bunch of those people could be people inquiring about starting benefit districts. It's
Right.
really hard to.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I guess I'm just trying to, I know that one of your complaints was that you didn't get a very good description of, you know, the nature of the records themselves that would have helped you narrow your request. And I'm just wondering, like, what additional information do you, can you give me an example?
That some of those documents were presentations. I'm not interested in like slides and presentations and stuff like that. All I was interested in was new records. Not like the ones that he gave me were 3 that records that were old that someone might have touched before, you know, and it was even outside of the narrowed time frame. So if he included those parts in the 7,500, to me that's inflated. If all these records, and he's talking about records from way past that are outside of the time frame, and he gives me 3 records that I already narrowed out. How many, you know, and they're part of the 7,500 records, then, you know, how am I supposed to give a more narrow focus if he's including records of old records outside of the year? See, the 3 records he did produce don't even meet the criteria of the narrow focus that I gave.
Yeah, I understand that. So you feel like you could only have narrowed it with respect to dates?
Well, no,
if you knew when new records were created? I'm just trying to understand, like, what information could help narrow this request?
Yes, and like if he had told me that some of the natures of the records are like slides, presentations, or if he had said that, you know, some of them are records that are like the 3 records he gave me, which were produced beforehand, and then someone touched or did something to them again. You know, I'm not interested in those records. You know, I could have said, you know, no records that you know, that were originally produced before the time frame. I'm not interested in those.
Okay, thank you.
This is not a question, but and don't let me shut down other questions of the parties, but I'm looking at the timeline here, and it does look like up until early May, there was a back and forth. It's not necessarily moving, you know, that efficiently toward better language, etc. But both parties were communicating. They were trying to talk about possible other language, etc. But it doesn't look like Sullivan ever said, you know, I give up or stop or anything like that. It was just suddenly he got this response that says your claim is closed. And at that point, you know, what's this whole 7,500 that's out there, it becomes like unproducible because of 6255. Now, I'm not sure if I can see, even if 6255 can be applied here, how that could be used to just eliminate the whole 7,500 or 13,000, whatever they are. So I'm just not. I'm thinking that we're looking at going to the task force because they're public records, jurisdiction, and it looks like we may be finding a violation. Any thoughts from you?
This is Member Forsley. I was just thinking that if there does want to be some type of resolution, whether we find a violation or not, I'm wondering if the department only did affirmative keyword searches, or did they also do like doesn't have keyword searches in terms of how the complainant asked about or said that they didn't want certain things like other CBDs, or I think that's what we're discussing. Those could have been, you know, searched in the negative, and then, yeah, that's my question.
Okay, that's a question to Mr. Steinberg. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would have to check with our IT people. I don't know that they can do it. They might be able to. But again, to the point of, first I need to clarify one thing again. Mr. Sullivan keeps saying that he narrowed both the dates on both portions of the request. That is not true. He narrowed, he said specifically for the second one, which was, for the first one, which is when I was doing the email search. The other one, which I gave him the documents that he says were old, those aren't included in the 7,500. The 7,500 was just the emails. He did not narrow the focus for the other portion. That's why I gave him those 3 documents. Again, even if for some reason you think that they weren't responsive, I don't know why you would find a violation for giving someone some 3 things that potentially aren't related. I can check on whether we can do but not certain keywords. The problem is that in cases like this, where his initial request was a very general sort of thing, records inquiring into establishing a GBD. We don't have a Green Benefit District manager anymore. If that person were still employed by the department, I could ask that person, please go through your emails and send me anything from someone or responses to questions about establishing a GBD. That person no longer works for the city. So the only thing, I went to the person who has taken over some of those responsibilities. He went through the files, and that's where I released the documents in response to item 2. The only other way for me to do a search is to go through IT. And I work with our IT folks. I've gotten very good at it, but it would be extremely difficult. It is extremely difficult to craft an IT search that gets to, we're inquiring about establishing a GBD. The example I like to give people is if someone asks for every email related to the budgeting for the current year. If I can go to a staffer and say, give me everything you have regarding trees and budgets, they can look through their things and they can give it to me. If I have to do an IT search, it's not going to be a perfect system. If someone says, hey, by the way, I want to make sure that we put in a request for that additional position when we meet on Thursday, there's no IT search that I can do that would have picked that up if I did it for budget and trees and buff or anything like that, because they didn't use those magic words. So what I had to do was do searches with GBD or Green Benefit District, and then I just had to go through them all and find out, what the records were. I can tell you what my search terms were. I mean, I have them. I asked for dates and keywords GBD. Oh, I actually did. I already did this. The keywords were GBD or Green Benefit District, and this message is from outside the city email system, which means it wasn't just internal, and specifically not Inner Sunset or Mission Dolores or Buena Vista, which were the existing GBDs. So that was the search term that I did, and that's what pulled up the 13,000 emails. That was an external, so it was an external email. It had the term GBD or Green Benefit District, and it did not include Inner Sunset, Mission Dolores, or Buena Vista, and that still came up with 13,000 emails.
And that did answer my question, and I think that just gives the kind of difference between kind of like the IT aspect of information science and then just like certain like the general public, because I think also including terms like start, begin, inquire, like inquiry, those type of search terms would have potentially narrowed the search.
P128.
I'm going to just say that, you know, maybe with this, you know, we're getting a little bit in the, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, I think, whereas, you know, I may want to back up myself and say, oh, well, what are we doing here? Are we going to move it forward or not? Should we find these a public jurisdiction and send it to the task force? So I wonder if we should have a simple, you know, motion. In fact, maybe I'll make the motion. Because I think I've got enough clarification and I've seen what I need to see. So I say we move this, send it to the task force to look at, well, these are public records. We have jurisdiction, and we would look, ask the task force to look for violations. Well, he asked for 6721 violations, but also 67.3. I'm not sure if I understand that one. But you know, if the task force wants to look at 67.3, that's fine. But I think mainly 6721. That's what we said. So that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
I mean, I almost want to ask if we can drop 67.3 because it doesn't, it actually is just, you know, definitions and it doesn't really apply here, and it might make it a little bit clearer.
I put it in there for jurisdiction, not for claim of failure.
Right. So it doesn't need to be there for this case because it's not something that we can rule on. It's just part of our potentially having jurisdiction. So I just wonder if we can amend it just to strike 67.3 because I think it's just confusing and we don't want to waste time on a discussion in the full task force. But
that's fine with me. I'm just gonna see if Mr. Sullivan wants to go forward on this 67.3 allegation. I'm not quite sure what you meant by it, but I don't think any of us see that could be the basis for finding anything. It's just a definitional statute. Is that okay?
Right.
Are you willing to just?
I actually, in my complaint, I never put it in as a violation.
Oh, okay.
It was put in by Mrs. Ledger as that way.
Okay.
For jurisdiction.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna limit my motion to the 6721. You know, failure to adequately respond and potentially timeliness issues.
I would second that then.
Okay, second. So we are, just so that I get this right, we are moving to find jurisdiction if the records are public, and forward the matter to the task force and request they find a violation of 6721 and amend the complaint to remove 67.3 from the record. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, we to remove 67.3. That's fine. Yeah.
All right, that's what I thought. Okay. So you
So
want to open the public comment?
Yes. Yeah. Public comment. Anyone?
Anonymous number 3.
Okay. We start with anonymous 3. Anyone else? Okay. Let's go ahead with that. Whenever show ready.
You ready, sir?
I am.
Go ahead.
All right, one administrative issue and one substantive issue. First of all, I think you need to change your motion, not just to strike 67.3, but to actually put the sections he alleged under, list the alleged violations. It's not in the complaint summary. He alleges 6725A, 6721B, 6721C, 6253C of the CPRA, and 6253.1, which is the assistance requirement of the CPRA as well. So those should be added and 67.3 should be removed. And that's on pages P113 and P114. He did allege them correctly. Anyway, on the substantive matter, this is the exact same argument made by the DA's office in your EOTC committee. And they realized, and they said it to you, that they can't do that. The 6255 does not mean you can just not produce anything. They would have to prove to you that each and every record that they would claim 6255, on each of those records, the balancing test succeeds. 6255 is not an argument to simply not do work. And as the DA's office itself admitted to you last time when they made almost the exact same argument and then started producing records, the proper response is to just do rolling responses and provide the records over time. The other problem with this kind of argument, and by the way, the last time you've discussed rule of reason recently in the task force twice. One was in my cases for all of the 30 years of police misconduct records, and all of those agencies, did what they're supposed to do, which is, it's going to take a long time, but they're producing them slowly. And I didn't contest that because they said, okay, we will produce them slowly over time. But the last time you didn't consider this just too much volume was the Smith versus Fine Arts Museum. He requested a review of 250,000 documents, and they narrowed that down to 70,000 documents, of which this task force finally ruled they should produce 7,000 per month as an incremental response. So I'm just giving you an example of how this task force has ruled on these notions that, it's just too much and we're just not going to do anything. That's not right. Start producing them incrementally. And I know that Mr. Steinberg does do this because I've asked for, maybe not under the same identity, and he doesn't know that I was under my identity, enormous amounts of records. And they do what they've told me, which is, we're only going to spend a very small amount of time and we're going to do it over a long time. And slowly the records come out. And that's the requirement. Slowly give the records, but don't just close out a request. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, members, anything before we go ahead with the vote?
Nope.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Ms. Leger.
Chair Schmidt?
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Member Stein?
Aye.
Member Stein, aye. Member Forsley?
Aye.
Member Forsley, aye. Moved by Chair Schmidt, seconded by Member Stein, to find jurisdiction that the records are public and forward to the task force with the recommendation to find a violation of 6721 and to amend the complaint to remove 67.3 from the record. Have I got it? Am I missing?
Can I ask for clarification, please? This is David.
Yeah, quickly, please.
Yeah, maybe I misheard you. Was the recommendation to find a violation, or just to refer to the committee to determine whether there was a violation?
To refer it to the committee to determine if there is a violation. It's a It's just a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, glad I could clear that up for you.
Great.
Okay, next item.
Item number 8, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the complaint committee.
Okay, well, I will start just by pointing back to we have an item that will probably be on next month's agenda. And we already did discuss that, so we don't need to be repetitive in that regard. I think at some point I want to do that first before we move on to something else in this committee. But we do have the possibility of taking up the issue of, should we be changing up our procedures? Should we be changing what it is we're looking to do here, and then to possibly make a recommendation based on that? I may also have a third item in the future where I'm actually probably going to bring this up to the task force in general as opposed to the committee first, but we probably would want to work it through the committee first, which is an idea I have. I want to see what happens with the backlog, because it's unclear to me, like, exactly if things are going to be moving fast enough in the future, but we'll see. So those are the three items that are sort of non-case discussion items among the members, and that's the sort of the schedule we have right now. Members, do you have anything else to announcements, comments, questions?
I don't.
Okay, nothing else. And I will then call for public comment on that. Whenever you're ready, Cheryl. So is there anyone here who does wish to make public comment now?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous 3. Anybody else? Okay, we will hear from Anonymous 3.
Anonymous,
very
are you
much.
ready? Hang on, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's Anonymous number 3. I'm happy to hear that that Member Stein has reached out to some of the IT folks in the city. That's really great to hear about how that IT, infrastructure and support could help streamline packets and evidence. I have to say thank you to Ms. Leger and possibly Mr. Young, because at least my complaints are fully digitized now, even if the packets aren't. That's been really helpful. There's no lossiness of transmission when I send you a complaint and then she sends it on to the respondents. They can see exactly what I'm alleging. They don't have to kind of read through black and white and not get images and attachments and stuff like that. So that's really helpful, and thank you to the staff for doing that. And as I think at least Ms. Leger knows, so as far as I'm aware, I have done everything I'm supposed to for the pilot, and I've had it done for a long time. I'm not sure when it's going to start, how it's going to start. I hope it starts as soon as possible, because unless we know whether the city actually does want to take a streamlined approach, then I don't know how you'd have evidence to see whether it's something to expand, something that might be useful. It's possible every single city agency will say, well, the city attorney tells us never to admit anything, and we're going to contest everything. That's totally possible. So, but we won't know until the task force, tries something new. And I hope that process starts as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. All very important points on that. Anyone else for public comment at this time? Okay, there being no further, let's go to the next item.
I just want to comment on something on what Anonymous said.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that this issue will be addressed at the October Sunshine Task Force hearing. They've already got a process in place, and I'm going to start using it this week with the chair's approval on what I'm doing, and using also the information that Anonymous has provided on some of his complaints. So we do have a process in place. And I know Anonymous is speaking of, and Chair Wolf will talk about it at the October meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. That's sort of items that are not really in this committee's view at this point. We're just sort of seeing that they're happening somewhere else. Okay, thank you, Cheryl. That's it, I think. So
Okay.
let's
Next
move
item.
on. Yeah.
Next item is adjournment, number 9. I have 7:48.
All right.
Who moves to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
And who seconds?
This is Member Stein. I second.
Taken by acclamation. All right. I will stop the recording now.